Welcome to the Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast, your go-to resource for navigating the world of entrepreneurship. The journey to success is heavily influenced by how you enter and navigate the market landscape. Choosing the right market entry strategy is akin to selecting the perfect path to embark on a transformative adventure.
The Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast is your ultimate launch pad for igniting ideas and skyrocketing your entrepreneurial dreams. Tune in, buckle up, and let's unleash the entrepreneurial spirit within. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden.
Hello, Ryan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing brilliantly. What about you, Professor Palin?
Juggling all the balls in the air still. It's never changing.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, as long as I don't drop them.
Oh, you haven't yet. I don't think you will.
Ryan, today I wanted to speak about market entry strategy from the perspective of an existing entrepreneurial venture. So you've created the business, you've established the market, but you're looking at opportunities for expansion.
A lot of people find themselves in that category, so it's going to be a good topic.
There's different reasons to expand. So you might be mitigating your risk, could give you competitive advantage. You could have resources. That's a resource optimization. It could be a long-term plan. There's all types of reasons to do this, but there are different ways you can go about doing this in different markets that you can address.
Yeah, and hopefully you've saturated the market that you're in, so you're looking for another growth opportunity.
Definitely. Now, one that people typically look at is looking at expanding globally, and exporting is a means of doing that. You're selling products or services in a foreign market. Another area people can look at, instead of just solely expanding into the market themselves, they can create strategic alliances, which can have many advantages when you're partnering with strengths of other companies and finding commonalities that you can leverage and expand.
That's a really interesting one, partnering with someone else that's already doing it well. So it may be a tangential product or service to yours in another market and having some sort of value add exchange.
There's multiple reasons for the strategic alliances, and there could be various applications of the type of alliances, but that's something that very often people overlook.
It is, because you don't initially see that as being a benefit to both companies, but it easily could be.
If you have limited financial resources, but you have some very strong IP, licensing is another way to expand into a different market.
And you see a lot of people doing that really well.
You have to make sure your IP is secure before you start moving into that realm.
And there's enough of it, right? There's a critical mass point where just name brand recognition typically doesn't do it. But if it's a whole suite of IP that you own that somebody can really take on and embody and look and feel like this quality product or service that you're offering somewhere else, it can take them really far and is therefore worth that acquisition.
By using licensing, you can expand much more rapidly.
Oh, absolutely.
We mentioned licensing very often if you're tight on financial resources. The opposite is if you have a glut of financial resources, you've done real well, acquisitions is another means of market entry strategy.
You see the very large tech companies right now, that being their primary source of expansion, is they're gobbling up all of these new interesting ideas that are bubbling up underneath them.
I started to see major companies probably 15, 20 years ago, they started to put less effort into R&D, more effort into acquiring what were considered as promising entrepreneurial ventures.
Yeah, and it's working.
It makes a lot of sense for them to do that. Another model that people look at in very specific areas that you can expand is franchising.
Yeah, think about McDonald's.
There's a misunderstanding of why people franchise, but let's take, for example, a restaurant. Say you and I start a restaurant and it's successful in a few locations, but we've leveraged all of our personal resources. When we go to expand to a new market, we don't have the financial resources and even the ability for the banks to lend us money. So you sell a franchise and leverage someone else's financial resources. So you're not limited to your personal financial resources. Now you have every potential owner of a franchise can leverage their resources. And that's a very rapid expansion potential.
And that new owner gets all of the goodwill, the IP, the supply chain, and everything else that you've figured out, the nuances of the business. They get that inherited.
If anyone is thinking of going the franchise route, I highly encourage them to hire a consultant that has expertise in franchises. It's very complicated.
I have never done a franchise business, but I can only imagine.
There are many laws and regulations associated with franchises.
Fascinating.
When you're looking at market entry strategies, you're looking at where would be the obvious reasons. And how do you go about that? I look at market characteristics being one. Is there a match with my current products, tangible or intangible, that I can naturally move across various markets? I look at the industry dynamics associated with that. And with that becomes the competitive landscape. So you might be alone in your region, but as you expand to another area, say in a global perspective, there might be strong players there where you're not experiencing it in your local market.
That might be a pitfall that you don't see until you're right up against a major competitor in another market.
Don't just look at the market itself, look at the entire industry. Another area that you want to look at is internally, what is your resource availability? Do you have the financial, the human, the technological resources to make a feasible entry into this market?
The last thing you want to do is start putting resources somewhere else, and that comes back and bites you at your core, what you're really already excelling at.
Other areas to consider is you want to look at what are your ultimate business goals and combining that with your personal risk tolerance, which we've spoken quite a bit about.
Everybody's risk tolerance is different. If you're in the game of entrepreneurship, you're a little more risk tolerant than risk averse. But even for those people, expanding into different markets might mean it's outside of where you're living right now. It might mean it's something you're a little less familiar with. So your risk does go up considerably.
Another area that I like to consider very strongly is the time frame. And with that is, what is the window of opportunity? And by window of opportunity that I'm referring to is, there is an opportunity in front of you. How long do you have to seize that opportunity before that window closes, if you will?
That's a really good one. You don't want to be pulling triggers, realizing that the execution of that trigger is going to be after the opportunity has already passed.
Or if you pull the trigger too fast and you don't have all of the resources, et cetera, associated with that, you can crash and burn.
That's exactly right.
Windows of opportunities are interesting, and I would study it very, very deeply before I look at market entry penetration.
Absolutely.
Within all of those areas of market entry, we're looking at the digital era. The digital era creates all types of various platforms, technologies that allow you to do this fairly seamlessly. Just look at e-commerce platforms.
Yeah. I mean, they're growing. It seems like any small business can almost have their own platform.
And with that, you can then join online marketplaces, Amazon being one. So you can be a fairly small player and jump into a global market.
You really can, and you can make yourself look enormous.
Definitely. And by making yourself look larger, also your online presence and branding through your websites, social media, content marketing, those are all factors that you have to consider.
A cool story I just heard was, speaking of Amazon and market entry, a company was looking to expand their products and services. All they did, the marketing team went on to Amazon, where they had a successful store selling some of their products, as a customer, and looked at the customers also bought section. Amazon had done all of the marketing research for them and told them exactly what their customers were also buying, which were the next products and services that they went into immediately.
Data analytics is so powerful today. And specifically, if you have a major player like Amazon doing the data analytics for you, that's icing on the cake.
That's exactly right.
The advent or expansion continually of global communication is a major factor to that. Video conferencing, instant communication. We're doing some work in coding with people around the world right now, and it's very seamless.
We are all around the world.
Those are areas that the digital revolution has helped expand. Can you think of any other areas that you're looking at when you're looking at market entry strategy that I haven't covered?
I would say communities are being leveraged a lot too. So when you're looking at entering, what associations or communities online can you get into so that you're getting a deeper understanding of where you're going, the buying habits of those people, and also making sure that you are truly addressing pain points. You're not just duplicating something that already exists.
Before we conclude, I'd just like to talk about a few success stories for examples of market entry strategies that were interesting. We talk about Uber quite a bit, but Uber Eats, there's an issue where they leveraged an existing network and moved into a totally different area of food delivery.
100%. And now Uber Eats is prolific.
Netflix is another one. They use digital disruption for marketing expansion. They revolutionized the way people consume entertainment.
Yep. Now all the major tech companies are duplicating what they did initially.
They were one of the entries into using the streamlining model.
Right.
Spotify also is another company. We do a lot of our podcasts and a lot of our listens are coming from Spotify. They used another digital streaming model to enter new markets from around the world. They did that very successfully.
Spotify is the 10,000-pound gorilla now.
Any final thoughts on and concluding statements when we're looking at market entry strategies?
I hope that you're looking to enter another market because you've really saturated the one that you're in. You're hyper successful. And I just encourage you to look at it like you're a startup again. Go back to the same principles. Don't take for granted your position. It's going to start over when you're in a new market. I've seen a lot of people stretch themselves too thin by trying to enter a new market, either too early or after the opportunity window is really closed or is closing. Look at it like a new expansion of the venture and treat it seriously.
Yeah, I agree. As with a startup, you want to do your thorough research. You want to look at all the relevant factors and you want to remain adaptable.
Without a doubt.
Sounds like a game plan. Well, let's get entrepreneurial.
Let's get entrepreneurial.
As we wrap up another episode of the Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast, we extend our gratitude for your presence and attention. Your dedication to the entrepreneurial spirit fuels our passion for creating this podcast. Check out ProfSpirit.com to discover resources and courses designed specifically for innovators like you. Stay on the cutting edge by following us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and other platforms as it is released. Until then, keep the entrepreneurial flame burning.